Chapter 15, Talking to Daddy. I woke up the next morning in a good mood. The presentation was over, and I'd done my part. Everything was as it should be, except my teeth felt fuzzy, like I hadn't brushed them before bed. But I always brush them before bed, even when... And then I remembered. I went into the kitchen and made myself a bowl of oatmeal. Daddy was reading the paper. There was an article about the election the weekend before on the front page. Little Rock votes against integration, 19,470 to 7,561. Schools to be closed indefinitely. Daddy slammed down the paper, making me jump. "Sorry," he said, but he scowled as he said it, and I realized then, certain as could be, that when asked if blacks and whites should go to school together, he had voted yes. Are you ready to go, Marley? So, when this is significant because he voted yes, blacks and whites should go to school together. That means on that side of the argument, he was this number. Okay, he wanted integration. He wanted them to be able to be together. And that's super important because right now Marley is struggling with integration and segregation because she doesn't understand how people can be segregated. So she's more on her daddy's side. Okay, so my thinking voice right now is wondering what this Talking to Daddy chapter is going to be about, because I'm pretty sure I'm connecting these two things. Are you ready to go, Marley? I nodded, even though I'd only had 2 spoonfuls of my oatmeal. It was quiet in the car. Daddy gripped the steering wheel like he was driving in a snowstorm. Not that it snowed much in Little Rock, but I seen a movie where there was one once, and that the actor clutched the steering wheel so tight his knuckles turned white. "Daddy?" "What?" "Can you find her for me? Maybe get her phone number?" Daddy shook his head. "Marley, you need to leave that girl alone." "But she's my best friend." "She was your friend. Now she's someone else." "No, she wasn't. Liz was funny and outspoken and clever, and I didn't see how all of that had changed just because people were now calling her colored. But Daddy and I usually got along so well. I trusted him." "I don't know," I said finally. "I want to hear her side of the story." "Marley, you can't still be friends with Liz." "Why not?" "Segregationists don't take kindly to blacks who try to pass as white. Liz and her family are in real danger. The farther away you stay from them, the better." "You're worried about me?" I asked. "Yes, I am," said Daddy. "Why do you think I drive you to school every day?" I shrugged. Daddy ran a hand through his hair. "Do you remember when I invited that colored minister, Pastor George, to come speak at our church?" I nodded. The next day, there was a note tucked in with our paper. It said, "You let your youngest walk to school tomorrow, she won't make it." And it was signed KKK. The Ku Klux Klan is in Little Rock? Daddy nodded. So, back in the beginning of the book, we learned that Daddy did get this letter in the mail, and we never knew what it said. Now we know what the threat said, and it was from the KKK. Excuse me. Daddy nodded. "Who's in it?" "Hard to tell since it's a secret organization. However, the Capital Citizens Council, or CCC, is not a secret club. Their avowed purpose is to support segregation in Little Rock. It seems reasonable to assume that some of their members are Klan sympathizers at the very least." "Do you know any CCC members?" I asked. "Mr. Haroldson, from next door. He was a nice old man who sometimes gave me penny candy. At least, I always thought he was nice. And Miss Daniels, Sally's mother, is a member of the Mothers League." "What's that?" I asked. "A women's group associated with the CCC that formed last year to oppose integration at Central." This was a lot to take in. Isn't everyone allowed to have their own opinion? "Of course," said Daddy, "but the reason there were police all over David's graduation last May was not because people have different opinions. The FBI was there to protect Ernest Green because they were worried that someone was going to try to kill him. I had never really thought about why we'd gotten so few tickets to David's graduation that Granny hadn't even been able to go. Apparently, there was a lot I hadn't thought about. But you still support integration, right? I do, said Daddy, and I still talk to Pastor George. He's Betty Jean's husband, you know. I hadn't known. How could I? Why haven't you ever told me any of this? There are issues for grown-ups to deal with, not children. The Little Rock Nine weren't even much older than me. Daddy sighed, but he didn't answer. I thought some things settled down at Central once they called the soldiers in. Somewhat, said Daddy. At least that was the official story. But things were not ever pleasant for them there. Minnie Jean Brown got expelled. She was a colored girl who dumped a bowl of soup on the boys who were picking on her. That was something Liz would do. If they were still being harassed, why didn't they complain? Daddy shrugged. Maybe they did and nothing was done. Maybe they thought if they showed any weakness, it would only get worse. In any case, last year the pictures from Central told the whole world Little Rock is filled with hate. And now the town's gone and voted against opening the schools. We are not just a town of racists, but those of us who believe in integration. He shook his head. We can't seem to find our voice. Daddy was so upset. For a minute I thought he was going to cry. That scared me as bad as anything, he'd said. I knew what it was like to have trouble finding your voice, so I reached over and patted his arm. He didn't look at me. I mean, Marley, I don't want to scare you too much. I'll keep you safe, but I do want you to be careful, which means you stay away from Liz. I nodded to show him I understood what he was saying, but I didn't promise that I would. So, Marley has a internal conflict regarding Liz. Her internal conflict would be that she still wants to remain friends with Liz. The external conflict that affects everyone in the story is the integration versus segregation conflict and what it's causing. Marley's in serious danger just because she believes that all people should be together.